here to talk about The Hidden, which is from 1987. It's a strange kind of genre bending film. We were talking about this off air. It's obviously a buddy cop action film, but at the same time, it's a sci-fi, and then it has like elements of horror. Like there are parts, especially with the alien, where I was just like, okay, yeah, this is the Nightmare on Elm Street guy, which is who it is. It's Jack Shoulder. I believe it's his second film. The first one he did was Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Hasn't done a whole lot since, but I think this is for a $5 million budget. This is New Line Cinema. They're obviously trying to make a statement. They were pretty new at the time. It's a hell of a movie. Hell of a movie. It's got a lot of good points. We all watched it. I watched it today. Michael, you hadn't seen this. You missed this one.
No, I didn't even know it existed until you mentioned it to me.
Right, which is kind of crazy. Because, I mean, we've seen a lot of the same stuff and grew up on a lot of the same stuff. So, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I missed this in the theater. I don't think it had a very wide release. I saw it on cable, but then it also had a lot of legs. It made about $9 million,
Okay.
$5 million budget, like I said. But this thing had legs on VHS, which I think, there's a lot of films. Blade Runner, plenty that we can name that sort of saw a second life on VHS, which was a huge thing in the 80s.
I'm like Quentin Tarantino. I worked at a video store in the 80s, and I'm unlike him because I'm not an Oscar-winning director, but it was an interesting time, and the whole VHS era is very, very intriguing. Having worked in one of those stores, like a mom and pop place, it was great memories and taught me a lot about sort of customers and what they like, what they don't like. And
yeah. I went to a mom and pop. I did not go to a Blockbuster. To go to a Blockbuster, you had to have a credit card, and I remember I didn't have a credit card for a long time. But we went to a place called Video Plus, and then there's another place in Tucson which is still there called Casa Video. You can see it.
Wait, still there?
Yeah, and you can see it in Can't Buy Me Love. It's actually across the street in a couple of the shots off Speedway. All the stuff that Can't Buy Me Love is pretty much all still there. It's crazy how Tucson has not changed. But this thing is. I love the pacing of this movie. One of the things that I learned was the writer. This was kind of a long, crazy script. This writer had written a couple other things. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was he had written Stakeout, which was
a big hit.
Yeah. What the hell else was it? It was really bizarre.
Did he work under a pseudonym on this project, though? I thought I read that.
Because he hated the writer's changes. So he changed, and he did that on 2 movies, apparently, and it was just basically because he couldn't stand what the director had done to the film. So Shoulder changed a lot of things, and apparently he was also rewriting the script while they were shooting a lot. Writers on the set, and he's just boiling over. He's so pissed off. But we were talking about the cinematography as well. This guy Jacques Haitkin, he worked on the first Nightmare on Elm Street, which was I think it's awesome. I think it's kind of like the perfect low budget horror. But this guy goes on to become a second unit director in Hollywood. He's worked on The Expendables, a bunch of X-Men films, Fast and Furious, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Captain America, Kong Skull Island. This dude's talented and working like ever since, which is kind of interesting. But this movie reminded me kind of Miami Blues. It's one that I missed. That I caught. I caught Miami Blues also on cable. That's Richard Armitage, which is another fantastic film. We should probably watch that next. But what else was funny about this? This is Kyle MacLachlan's 3rd movie.
Was this before or after Blue Velvet?
It's right after Blue Velvet.
Okay.
So he's got Dune, which is his first.
Oh my.
Yeah. And then you got Blue Velvet. Yeah, and then straight into this, where he said that he played the character like he was playing somebody that had a mask on all the time. And they wanted originally the idea was maybe to cast it with Stallone or with Schwarzenegger or somebody like that.
Not a good idea.
The whole idea with Kyle was to make him sort of blend in. They want him to make, be sort of an FBI guy, which is ironic because he ends up in Twin Peaks, in 1990. So, but they wanted him to obviously just kind of just be sort of monotone and just sort of
Yeah.
it's the alien symbiote basically.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got Michael Nuri from Flashdance, which is weird. And apparently he and the director were knocking heads the whole time. They did not get along, and apparently that's kind of why that dude didn't go on to do a whole lot more in the 80s. Claudia Christian, probably I think the first time people see her, I mean, she's like the Babylon 5 star. Apparently she stuffed her bra because Brenda the stripper was supposed to be very busty and Claudia is not.
Yeah.
So a lot of this was shot in LA. It was shot in the old Lincoln Heights jail. The police station and the jail obviously were shot there. So you got a lot of on location stuff in LA. The record store is real. The hotel at the end is real. I love that this is an intergalactic chase. So Kyle MacLachlan's been chasing him for 9 years or 9 Earth years in other galaxies and on other planets. This alien that is a symbiote that goes from body to body. The other thing is interesting is that the alien is a criminal who likes fast cars, junk food, heavy metal,
women,
and basically 80s indulgences. Did anybody notice that?
You kind of want to hang out with him, really.
Yeah, I know.
I'm actually shocked that when he went inside the car dealership, he didn't stop and do a line of Coke before he left because they had it on the table right there.
They did.
Yeah.
The guy who's buying the Ferrari, and he walks in, he's like, I want this car, and he's like, well, it's already sold, pal,
Right.
Yeah, it's that the opening apparently was Shoulder's creation on kind of on the spot. They needed something fast and kind of dirty, and it's like everybody's seen a bank robbery, so why not just open it up with this security cam footage? And what they did was they set up a video camera in that space, and then they just pointed the film camera at the video camera monitor and just filmed that for that opening. That sets up. It really is, because do you want to watch another bank rob? Not really. I've seen it all.
Right.
I mean, Heat pretty much takes the cake, and there are other films which with great bank robbery sequence. The Wild Bunch we were talking about a minute ago, but like it's perfect. It just it cuts to the chase, and then you're literally in a chase with a real Ferrari, I might add. Shoulder said that he had to have a real Ferrari, so he went back and forth. He negotiated with New Line for weeks. He said it's got to look authentic. The audience needs to see that we're using a real Ferrari in a real chase scene, and we're willing to destroy it in order for them to take it seriously. So it's a real Ferrari. They had 4, one for the hero car, which is like close-ups. It's in good shape. They had 2, which were kind of trashed and that they could trash. And then 1, which was a shell that they just blew up, which I thought was also, obviously awesome at the end. But yes, real Ferraris, and which were beaten up and blown up, which is awesome.
So, Brett, you were saying basically this director kind of got a bad reputation for being a little bit combative on the set, and that kind of hurt his.
That's Michael Nuri. That was Michael Nuri, not the director. Michael Nuri apparently was not easy to work with. Didn't like his lines. Liked to ad lib, which then got Kyle kind of ad libbing. Kyle actually did the 9 years your time. That's Kyle, apparently, like on the spot. But yeah, they just didn't get along, and I'm not exactly sure what that's all about. But that dude is obviously a talented, handsome, big, commanding actor, and he did not go on to do much of anything beyond Flashdance in this movie. And it's like it's probably because he had a bad attitude, more than likely.
I just interject on that and say it's kind of funny that he didn't go on to do much more after that, but he's such a recognizable face still today.
Yeah,
that just goes to show how great the movies were that he was in and how well he put himself across that we still remember him.
Shoulder was famous for basically pushing the pacing of the script. He wanted it faster. He wanted to get to the payoff quicker, and I think. Would you guys agree that's kind of a horror film sort of maybe trait?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote in my notes that this was a lean movie. It just doesn't have any fat at all. And also, every time I see a new movie, it's over 2 hours long, and I'm
Yeah,
like, oh
this is
God.
97 minutes.
Listen,
Yeah,
if you got
yeah,
Thanos in the Avengers, give me 4 hours. I'm all for it. But for crying out loud, you can tell a story shorter. I watched
yeah.
Avatar. I can't officially review it yet, but you're going to tell me you can trim some of that 312 minutes?
Right,
There's stuff you can trim, please.
That's
right.
how I felt about the
Absolutely.
Batman. I was just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like,
Yeah,
I like what I see. I obviously I love the production design and everything's cool and it's a little too emo for my tastes.
Mm.
right.
We're talking about Kyle, you know, his Kyle, or his Dune, his Paul. That's my favorite Paul. This new Paul is very emo, and
Yeah,
obviously we see that trend, and that's obviously to appeal to a younger audience. But
right.
you're not going to sit here and tell me you couldn't trim at least an hour out of the Batman. There was, and it's the same with Blade Runner 2049. There was a lot of kind of lingering shots in that movie, which obviously as an artist I love, but at the same time, we're not here looking at a painting. This isn't a Caravaggio, even though that seems
Right.
like kind of what it ends up sort of emulating in a way on screen. These long drawn out shots. I don't get it because it's a movie,
Yeah.
and I thought that the changes that I learned about that Shoulder made in this seem to make a lot of sense from the standpoint of just picking up the pace and just cutting to the quick, and therefore that 97 minutes is really fast. There's no downtime in this movie. There's not one.
Right.
Maybe the dinner sequence where Kyle is probably getting drunk for the first time.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
But even I thought that worked well. I wasn't bored, and I thought you needed maybe a little kind of put the brakes on a little bit. Kind of
well,
that
don't
was
they need to
okay.
bond? I mean, that's the buddy cop theme is like originally they're button heads in the beginning, which they do. You have
Mhm.
FBI that shows up to basically take their best cop out off the front lines to work this crazy murder spree, which is just basically people who've never committed crimes before going on these rampages, and just
Mhm.
doing whatever they want.
Yeah. And by the
This,
way, this movie's got a huge body count. Huge.
yeah.
There are dead bodies in every scene, all over the place.
Well, and it's all practical effects. Again,
Mm.
I see so many digital blood squibs and blood splatters these days, and it's so obviously digital to me. And I love real squibs, and I love
Mm.
guys like Rob Bottin and Tom Savini. Like at one point in time, I wanted to be a makeup effects guy. Like
Mm.
when I was like 13, I wanted to be able to work with foam and silicone latex and do all the stuff that guys like Rob Bottin and what's his name, Baker, the Monkey Man,
Rick Baker.
Rick Baker. God, that guy, I mean, those guys are just amazing. And these guys are part of the magic of Hollywood. The magic of make believe. They suspend disbelief,
Mm.
and it's ironic because when you use guys like that, they're so much cheaper. They're like
Mm.
50% cheaper, but everybody's got to do the digital thing for some reason. And I just love seeing real explosions, real fire. One of the things I didn't like about I saw this in The Samaritan and I saw this in Reacher. Digital fire
Yeah,
looks horrible.
Mm.
It just does.
absolutely. It's a cartoon.
It is, and it
Yeah.
looks like a cartoon. It looks animated, even when it's in the background and it's
Mhm.
fall off. It's blurred.
Yeah.
Whether you're using like an anamorphic lens, if they still use those anymore, I don't know.
So
But like,
yeah,
it just doesn't look right. It doesn't. I don't know. And then on top of that, your actors are not affected by heat.
Mm.
hmm
So
yeah.
I mean,
So they're not going to react properly.
well, Tarantino wanted Leo to wield the flamethrower, and Leo didn't want to wield the flamethrower
Right.
in the movie in Once Upon a Time
Right.
in Hollywood. He said, especially the you guys want fried sauerkraut, and then whoosh,
Yeah.
he hits all those Nazis. He did not want to do that, I read, but Tarantino said, "You've got to do it so I can get your reaction."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not just his reaction, obviously, I'm going to kill all these guys, but it's the heat that's coming off of that real life flamethrower that he's reacting to, and that's
Yeah.
what makes it so real and believable. So, like Rick, Leo trained with that dragon for weeks and weeks and weeks, for hours on end, and
Yeah.
became really good with it. And that those are those iconic scenes. Those are two of my favorite scenes. Obviously the ending is such a great payoff,
Mm.
but It's hilarious.
I was
And the
looking back at
flamethrower in this thing is badass too.
it is, but the way they
Yeah.
insert the flamethrower early in the movie. Oh, by the way, those gangbangers had this
That's a
flamethrower.
pickup shot.
Right.
So we're to get back to Shoulders rewrites. Apparently, the true ending, the original ending was the alien gets away. It's a cliffhanger.
Oh.
He says, I want the presidency, as the senator, and then that's it. And he just thought that there's no payoff. It's not good enough. So he rewrote it to where and also added in the slow motion, which I also thought was perfect, where he gets through security and he's running, getting shot at. He risks his body, obviously, his host, and he's getting blown to pieces, all in slow motion to the point where he gets to the front of the podium there and pulls out the flamethrower, and it's perfect. But anyway, that was the idea. So then it's like, we got to go back and we do a pickup shot of that guy bringing the flamethrower in over his shoulder. But yeah, it's a little ham-handed, but it's like, that's such a great idea for the ending. You've got to go and shoot that pickup shot, Christian. I mean, you just got it. It just doesn't matter. If guys like us are like, It
makes me wonder. He probably also did a pickup shot where they showed that flamethrower earlier. I can't remember. I think it might have been the cops. Yeah.
The black guy brings it in. Yeah. And it's
right.
Like
He's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I assume they shot that along with the that added part in the ending, because otherwise there would have been no point to that.
Exactly.
That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
One other thing that reminded me of when you were talking about Leo not wanting to hold the flamethrower, there's another director who's a lot like Tarantino, just in that way. Like he makes people use real shit.
Yeah.
Do you know Danny Boyle?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Trainspotting.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
The Beach.
28 Days Later.
28 days. 20 days later. Right. I mean, that guy was probably the first to. Was that guy the first to bring zombies back, like sort of officially?
Well, yeah, he was the guy who was the first one to say it's a zombie movie without actual zombies, and then everyone else started doing that same thing afterward, which means they're not actually dead; they're just under a virus of some sort. So he kind of kickstarted that whole thing.
Yeah.
But what I was going to bring up is actually my favorite movie. It's called Sunshine by Danny Boyle. It's from 2007. Chris Evans plays a part in it, and his character. Near the end, they're in a spaceship on their way to the sun to do something, which I won't get into right here. But there's a computer that is liquid cooled. It's actually submerged in like a vat of nitrogen or something. And there's let's just say a bad guy who undoes it to sabotage the mission. And Chris Evans, the last thing he does is to actually go into the freezing cold liquid to fix the computer, to hook it back up. And I watched the Danny Boyle's commentary. He actually put him in below freezing water because he wanted it to be real. He wanted his reaction to be real. He wanted the cold air coming out of his mouth when he came up. I give Chris Evans credit for, being able to go through that like he did.
That same with Stallone on First Blood. That's when they're in the woods, it's like 43 degrees out, and all he's wearing is that piece of cloth that he tears apart that he finds from in a scrapyard and makes it into sort of like a poncho. You can see his breath. Everybody else is all bundled up and shit, and probably nice and warm. Ridley shot he shot a scene in Blade Runner, the eye guy, the geneticist that makes the eyes. What's his name? Tommy Hong, or I forget his name, but they shot that in a butcher's house, and apparently it was freezing up the cameras. It was so cold in there.
Wow.
And then they threw in a bunch of bee smoke because Ridley, you can't have a scene without smoke in it, and then that was making everyone sick. Everybody was getting like carbon dioxide poisoning, so they were throwing up. But Jim Cameron does this. The Abyss. People were and Titanic. Everybody talks about being miserable on Jim Cameron shoots because you're swimming in freezing cold water, or you're just doing things over and over again, which are really uncomfortable.
Right.
So, Ripley, Sigourney had the flamethrower in Aliens, which I know
Yeah.
that she did practice with. I think she had a stunt woman who did some of that work. But
Mhm.
there are shots there. It's very much Sigourney with the flamethrower, and you can see
Yeah.
that. So the audience wants to see that.
So it
I
makes
want,
me,
I want the actors to put the time in to do that kind of stuff. I think it's important. So,
it made me think of something that I heard about Hitchcock that he did, and it makes me wonder if a lot of these directors would subject themselves to the same stuff that they put their actors through. Because what I heard, I forget what the movie was, but Hitchcock was filming a movie and it was raining outside. So instead of being out in the rain with the actors, he was sitting in his limo with the window rolled up. Every once in a while, he'd roll it down a crack and be like, do this, and roll it back up really quick. So like he was completely safe while they were miserable.
didn't he think that actors were basically just like tools? Basically, I mean, kind of like Kubrick. They were just there to,
Maybe. I don't know. I
basically
never heard that, but you
creating.
might be right.
Yeah. Did you guys see that? What was that Hitchcock show with Anthony Hopkins played Hitchcock? Did you see that?
I don't think so.
It was The Making of Psycho. It was really well done.
Okay.
Was it just called Hitchcock?
Yeah, and I think it was on HBO Max, or maybe HBO Max made it.
I might have seen it.
And Hopkins was in, quite a bit of. I don't know if he gained any weight, but he definitely was in a lot of prosthetics.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it looked good, and I thought he did a good job. But it was interesting because there was a lot about his wife. Apparently, his wife was a pretty influential part of his life creatively.
Mhm.
So there's always a strong woman behind,
Right.
a lot of these guys, the sort of the muse. The other thing I learned on this was the special effects I thought were really good. It's Kevin Yeager. He did Nightmare 2. He went on to do a lot of other stuff. But again, real squibs, real blood, real fire, real explosions. The alien is I thought was really cool because it looked kind of like a bug.
Yeah.
It was sort of weird and
Mhm.
kind of echoed, I think, The Thing.
Yes, I was just
Yeah.
going to say that.
Yep.
That tubing, the sort of the tentacles that would look like little plastic tubes.
At the end, yeah,
Yeah.
it was really weird, but it looked like some kind of a bug, and I always thought that was sort of from an interesting aspect, not what you would expect, really.
Right.
I was expecting to cringe during the FX sequences. I'm like, okay, late 80s, not a big budget. This is going to look like crap. And actually, I was like, that's not bad. Even that end shot where the creature gets burned and opens its mouth, I thought that was pretty effective too.
Yeah, they made two, I guess, latex molds for the symbiote sequence where he transfers in the beginning, and they were like a real soft latex, and apparently one was meant to stretch and one was meant to look realistic, and the one that was look realistic was when it was going into, and that melted by the time they were done filming the shot because it was such a thin latex, but it looked real because it was so thin, and they knew they're like, okay, this is perishable, so we got so much time to do this. But again, it's like they do more with less back then, so you had to be more creative, and you're sort of banking on in a lot of cases, you're banking on the fact that you're not dealing with high resolution. And that's one of the things that sometimes you run into when you watch some of these films. Even watching Sopranos in high definition, I'm kind of amazed at how much James Gandolfini sweats under those lights. He sweats a lot. You don't see that in standard definition. And that's part of what matte painters and a lot of these guys sort of were banking on. That's why a lot of these effect shots are so dark nowadays with the CG. They really turn the lights down in order to hide all of the mistakes. You can't do that back then, really. It doesn't seem like it. Or at least
one of the things I liked about the movie a lot, I thought the actors who were inhabited by the alien did a great job of being menacing, and they had their face conveyed that they are not of this earth, that they are being taken over. But it could have been campy and corny and cheesy, but I thought they kind of straddled that fine line. We could tell something was amiss. They had this evil intention, but it didn't quite go into cartoonish land. I thought it was really good. These are character actors.
I would also say I liked that those actors, whenever they spoke, they sounded like the same person. Like when the two different actors at two different points, right before he's about to kill someone, he says, bye. And
Yeah.
like in a weird bye voice. And it sounded the same from different actors. So.
Well, he's got that shoulder-fired rocket.
Yeah.
He comes around the corner with the violence is so over the top. I mean, that's one of the things I think probably that 10-year-old me just adored was it's a shoot 'em up. The body count is huge, and there's so many firearm discharges. I mean, the machine guns, shotguns, handguns. He raids the weapons, or the I guess it'd probably be all the evidence lab or whatever, where all the weapons are. So he takes a shoulder-fired rocket, and he comes around the corner and gets shot in the head, swings over, and then shoots the rocket down the corridor, and then explosion, and then he gets away again. But the Christian, you were talking about how they all kind of were sort of alien. There's an alien tell with all these characters, and it's this weird little tongue thing that they all do.
They kind of do a little, yeah.
Well, and the funny thing is, they even get the damn dog to do it, like a bunch of times.
Yeah, I kind of wondered about that dog shot. I'm like, did they really get the dog to do that?
Well, did they get the dog to do it first and then go back and get the
keys? Right.
I don't know. I'm just assuming that they made the actors do it first, and then they end up with this dog. The dog's name was Roy in real life. He did show up in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, apparently.
A fine canine performance, by the way. I thought
Australian Shepherd.
Yeah.
So one of the smartest breeds, Australian Shepherd. It's like the Border Collie or a cattle dog. But like the little tongue flick, which the dog even does when the dog's sitting looking in the mirror. Do you guys remember that shot?
Oh yeah,
looking at itself, and because they're always like looking at themselves and like kind of like touching. Even Kyle MacLachlan does this.
Yeah,
it's strange, but it's like that kind of thing are those little details, right? Which I think fills out the movie really nicely. Could you have left those out? It's like, what is it without it? Probably not a whole lot lost there, but it's just one of those things that just those fine little details, man, which goes from kind of like good to exceptional. Yeah. And I think this is a really unique, and I'd go as far as say exceptional film. The Alien ending, or the this I did not know. I learned this today. So I was always under the assumption that basically at the ending, Gallagher basically gives his life force over to Beck. And that's not what happens. Beck dies. Beck is dead. Yeah. That's why his wife runs out crying. Gallagher basically goes into Beck. He's a symbiote now. And so Shoulder said that in like an audio commentary that Gallagher gives up his life for Beck. A lot of people misinterpreted that. I did as a kid. I thought that maybe it was just like his life force, and Gallagher sacrificed himself. He dies. Beck comes back. Right. No, that's Gallagher inside of Beck's body, and he's has to live out the rest. He gives up his life to live out the rest of his life as Beck, and that's why the little girl is sort of standoffish as she is in the bedroom with Gallagher. Because children see things apparently that adults sometimes can't.
Yeah, I wondered about that. I thought both of those different things while I was watching it yesterday. At first you think, well, number one, when he was doing the thing, inserting himself into the other guy, it was not the same as when the other alien would do it. It would be an actual creature coming out and entering the other body, whereas with him it was like a glowing like life force thing. So I thought, well, maybe that's what he did. He just brought him back to life instead of doing what the other alien did in taking over a body. But then you're right. The giveaway is in the hospital room. The girl looks at her father in bed the exact same way she looked at Kyle MacLachlan earlier. So that's how you know it's actually him.
Yeah, I had no idea. So it kind of took on a new meaning for me. It's which I think is a more interesting ending, frankly, than him just giving up his life force, because now he's got to be. I mean, you saw him when he's like eating dinner, like he had no idea what to do, really. He was like watching them, and then he's like drinking beer for the first time, so he's like hammered.
I also like when they give him an aspirin, he drops it like the Alka-Seltzer.
Well, at first he hands him an Alka-Seltzer and he bites it in half, and he's like, "Lloyd, you drop it in, and then you drink it." So then, like later on, some cop gives him like a couple aspirin, and he just like, oh, drops it in. And then there's like another sequence where he's like sitting there drinking it, trying to get the sediment out of the bottom, and Beck is just looking at him, just like, what's wrong with
But
this
those
guy?
are like little touches that add to like a little texture, a little,
The characters,
a lot
yeah.
of that, yeah. Even in the police precinct, I thought there were lots of little touches, the banter. It felt very real and organic in a way, I thought.
The guy that he's always dumping his work on to is in Deadwood. That's Leon from Deadwood, who's like a heroin addict and also works the crap tables. It probably, I mean, this thing's stacked with character actors.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about, there's Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
He's in there. He gets shot in jail. He like says like, he's like, hey motherfucker, or something. Like he says something to the alien guy, and he turns around and blows him away. Then you got Dwayne Davis, who was Jerome in Summer School, the guy that basically goes to the bathroom for 3 weeks and then shows up at the end to take the test.
Right.
Big, football. I probably cast football player in past like teen movies or something. But there's like a bunch of people in here who all went on to do more character actor work, more work in Hollywood. Like I said, it's like this small film, New Line Cinema. They're nobodies outside of Nightmare on Elm Street, and they're on a streak. So it's like, let's put some money into this film, and creatively, I think it's a 10. And it's and like we were talking about, it's probably if it was in more theaters, because that seemed to be the game back then, was how many screens can you get it on? I think The Godfather sort of started that, if I'm correct, Christian. I might be wrong.
I don't know, but I was just thinking, I think word of mouth would have kicked in organically had it been in more screens and had better legs at the theater. I mean, it kicked in when it got on home video. So
music was also good. I thought the score was well done. Like, you had mentioned, it's not your typical like 80s synth type stuff. Yeah. Sounds like there's some
no Faltermeyer in action there.
Yeah. The other thing was they wanted that scene where in the beginning where he walks into the storage unit before he has the heart attack and he finds the guns. He puts on the radio, and it's like a country song, and it's like talking about loving and sunshine, and like he picks it up and he smashes it. They wanted Sinatra. I think they wanted like they wanted something, but it was too expensive. And then for the striptease for Claudia, they wanted Tina Turner. But they ended up with that Bad Girls song, which I think went on to actually be sort of a thing. But I thought the music that they did pick was actually really good. There's some cool stuff in there. The Record Store, I don't know if I mentioned that Weapons of Love song, that's a cool song. There's a bunch of stuff. Like, now I kind of want to go and sort of pull from that movie and see who these bands are, because again, do more with less. You got to find something good.
Yeah, I don't know who the sorry, I interrupted.
No, go ahead.
I don't know who the band was that he was first listening to after robbing the bank when he was driving.
Yeah.
But it almost sounded like, voice-wise to me, it almost sounded like Ronnie James Dio. I'm like, whoa, is that Dio? But I didn't know the song, so I don't know who it is.
I kept thinking it was either Wasp or Dio, because I almost thought maybe Blackie Lawless. I couldn't tell, but I bet with a Google search we could find that song. But it's heavy metal. And I just remember thinking to myself, okay, like fast Ferrari, cop chase, bullets flying. How do you score that? This is how you score that. You lay down a bunch of metal.
Yeah.
I mean, there's even that sequence in that car chase where there just so happens to be two guys with a big sheet of glass that they're moving across the street.
Yeah. One of the classic 80s movie sines. What is the glass movers?
Well, it's like, what does the criminal do in that sequence? He speeds up.
Yeah.
Floors it. He like downshifts. Just goes pow. These guys fly into the air. Glass everywhere. It's like, it's so classic. It's almost like stereotypical kind of like 80s tropes, but they're done really
doesn't he run over a handicapped guy at one point? A guy in a wheelchair?
Yes.
And as soon as I thought, okay, they can't run over that guy, and they did.
Right.
They did.
Well, they show him like somersault over the top of the car, and then they cut to a wide shot, and the wheelchair just falls to the ground, and you can just see the car just blast off into the distance, because he drives through. he drives through a park, as I recall. I think the cops, he takes a shortcut through the park.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just insane, absolute insanity. I love just kind of how this thing, what can go wrong does go wrong in this movie. That's also kind of what's fun, is that it's just pure mayhem, operating within, kind of a box again. I keep coming back to. I'm like, okay, but again, this is a buddy cop movie, but with these elements of sci-fi horror and just over the top action. I think that's kind of what I think in a lot of ways makes it an 80s classic, even though it didn't make money and it didn't get really any glory. I think it's got the glory now at this point.
Yeah. They made a sequel. I thought it might have been 93. I don't even remember it at all. I'm sure it was a quick, cash grab. Did you guys see that at all?
I haven't. I did not. But I didn't know there was a sequel till like 30 minutes before I got on here with you guys. I saw online that there was.
Apparently, it spends most of the time recapping the first movie.
Oh, I hate that.
Oh,
which but it kind of goes into like where they're from, and apparently like the name that the alien calls Kyle MacLachlan at one point in time, which is like Roz something. That's an actual star in a real solar system.
Oh wow, that's cool.
And the planet that they talk about being on prior to Earth, I left you on Altinian, whatever, with your dead partner. That's a real place. So, again, solid writing. I mean, they're just not pulling shit out of their ass. I mean, they're actually putting the time and effort into small details, and that's kind of what this movie is sort of about in a lot of ways. I think when you kind of look underneath, is small details. Yeah. This shoulder guy is a talented dude, and it's just strange that he did not go on to do much else, and just sort of the writer too. Okay, this guy wrote Class with Andrew McCarthy and Rob Lowe, and Jacqueline Bisset, which is a great movie. It's a great movie, and it's got Casey Siemaszko, it's got Alan Rudd, it's got John Cusack, it's got all these Chicago guys in the background. But then so he did Class, he did The Hidden, and then he went on to do Stakeout, which obviously that was a big hit. That made a lot of money. Emilio and Dreyfus. And
by the way, I was just thinking about the dinner scene when his wife says to Kyle MacLachlan, "Where are you from?" And he does this.
Yeah. She's like north, and he's like
up north. Oh, okay.
Sure.
He never really lies,
Right.
He kind of obfuscates, it's like he asks him like, what's going on? And he's like, you don't want to know. Are we talking little spacemen? That's a great line. And and then being a cop didn't prepare you for something like this.
I like when he first gets in the car with the cops. Kyle MacLachlan first gets in the car with Michael, I forget his last name, but at the beginning, the cop asks him how much this car costs, and he's like, I don't know. Like, what, did you steal it? Yeah.
Well, that's the funny part, is that like both aliens like fast cars. They like performance. I have no idea what Kyle's alien species prefers for music, but they both love driving fast, which is kind of funny. The other thing is, like you said, it's like I kept thinking that at the end it was going to be when he was transferring from his body into Bex. I thought it was going to be some kind of a symbiote, some kind of alien, and it reminded me of Cocoon for some reason. Sort of that glowy, yellowy, sparkly sort of effects, which was similar to his weapon, which was also interesting. He can only shoot this thing when it's transferring from one body to the next. Otherwise, it doesn't work on humans. Because Beck is like, why did you shoot him? And so he shoots Beck with the thing, and like Beck's standing there. He's like, doesn't work on human flesh or human composition. He blows up that wall that the cop does when he's screwing around with it, which is sort of what triggers the whole jail sequence, essentially.
I'm actually surprised there hasn't been a remake attempt at this. Maybe there has, I don't know, but it seems kind of ripe.
That's what I was going to also ask you guys. I mean, is this one of those ones that could only be made back then? I mean, could you remake this today? Stay true, faithful, I think, to the original beats and the storyline, but just insert some new actors, new technology. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it. I don't know if a studio would be brave enough to do something like this today.
It's very
I think if
streamlined. They would make it messy.
yeah, I think if they did, they probably wouldn't include a lot of the little inserted scenes like the wheelchair guy scene and that sort of thing. They probably would. No major studio would allow them to put it out because
No,
of
they would not.
it. You
The
know?
wheelchair sequence, definitely, definitely. But
If
and
you,
there's
if you a guy with a MAGA hat and they run him over.
Right? Yeah.
definitely a white guy for sure.
Yes.
Definitely. They mentioned in the beginning like his rampage, and apparently he butchered some people with a machete, and like two of them were kids. I didn't
Yeah.
catch that on the first viewing, but this is a bad guy, obviously, bad
Yeah.
alien who just kind of does whatever he wants, you
Yeah.
know, wherever he wants. And how, the other thing is you have no idea how these guys got to Earth.
Oh,
How they're going from galaxy to galaxy, how he's chasing him all over the universe for nine years.
right.
I
They make
kind of
no
like that you have no idea. It's because it probably it doesn't matter, to
Right.
shoulder.
It was
Right.
interesting that he's at the one scene where he's at the diner and he's got the music on. He turns the music lower because he wants to hear the presidential candidate talk about
Right.
his plans. So he's definitely thinking if able to kind of get into a body of someone of consequence, I could really inflict some damage on this poor planet.
Well, he
Mhm.
says that to Kyle MacLachlan's character. He says we could rule this place. They have nothing to really
Yeah,
protect them from us. There's nothing
Right.
stopping us. And he obviously loves power, and taking power. And he says something about that senator when they're talking about the speech that he's going to give, and he's like, is that the one everyone applauds for? And they're like, yes. So he's like, he's obviously he loves adulation, he loves power. He's here to potentially conquer if he can.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of preserving these bodies, which he doesn't do a very good job of. Really, that's the one thing that's just kind of like this is a smart alien. It's like he just goes around getting shot to pieces, basically.
Mhm.
The one stunt that just still blows my mind is Claudia Christensen's jump off the rooftop through the neon sign.
And that's a real body going through, a real stunt person.
It's a real stunt. It's a stunt guy.
Uh-huh.
Was not Claudia, shot in silhouette, obviously, but I mean, it's a running. I mean, she goes through that sign, and then they have two shots. They have one at the bottom, which gets her falling, and then obviously one from the front, which gets it going through the sign. But again, it's kind of like sort of 80s tropes, neon and the night and action, and it's just perfect. I just thought that was so perfect.
I think the perfect 80s
edition.
trope was them doing coke in the dealership.
Yeah.
So great. Out of a little Ferrari. It's out of a little Ferrari toy, and the Coke is in the trunk.
And that's how you seal that deal.
Mhm.
He's like, are you happy? And he's like sitting there, like the dealer guy's like, are you happy? He's like, oh yeah.
Mhm.
Buying a Ferrari, doing blow.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you not be? It's the 80s. How could you not be happy?
Yeah, that was
Right-
one of the
right in
things.
the open.
I actually, like on my notes, I made a little list of all these common 80s tropes that they purposely put in there, and that
Oh,
was
go
a
for
big
it.
one of them. There's that. There's car chases, explosions,
Yeah.
all this stuff. It's like the guy who wrote it and the guy who directed it obviously knows what they're doing when they're trying to attract a certain audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just think there's obviously bars set during that era. I mean, this is '87, so there's quite a few of these movies already out. So it's just sort of like, okay, buddy cop. How do you up the ante? How do you make this stand out? And it does stand out, but it's just kind of amazing to me that I missed this. I probably missed it in the theater because it was R, and I
Right.
even though I think I watched just about anything I wanted on cable because it was just I had a lot of it unsupervised adult. There was no adult supervising me most of the time. They were somewhere else. But it was tougher to get into an R-rated movie, I think, in the late '80s. Especially, I looked really young and I was short, so it's just like there was no way, short of sneaking in, which we did on occasion. But it's like usually I go with my brother or I'd go with my dad, and it's like you'd have to get permission. You'd have to be like, okay, I want to go watch this, which is hilarious because it's like I saw RoboCop in the theater in 1987 as well. So.
Yeah.
That's crazy. This came out the same year RoboCop, which I think is also like Full Metal Jacket. And
Oh yeah, it's a great year.
yeah, man, jeez, unreal.
Yeah, when when you talk about not being able to get in to movies in that time period, so me and my friends would like most kids, would hang out at the mall a lot.
Sure.
And occasionally we'd go to the movie theater in the mall and go see a movie, but obviously we're too young to buy tickets to rated R movies. So we literally would just walk up and ask some adult to buy them for us. Like they'd always say yes. So
That's we did that in high school with beer. We used to call it pimping beer. You walk up to some kind of cool looking guy in his 20s or 30s, and you'd send the oldest of you, my friend Brent, who was tall, we'd send him in usually. Walk up to be like, man, I forgot my ID at home, or I forgot my driver's license at home, and I'm going to a dinner party. I've got to get some beer. Would you mind if I gave you some cash, just going and buying it? 9 times out of 10, it worked. On the odd occasion was when he walked up and did it, and the guy's like, "Nah, man, you don't want to buy it from me." And he's like, "Well, why not?" And he's like, "I'm a cop." He's like, "Well, I'm gonna go home and get my ID."
It's kind of funny to use that lie. Oh, I forgot my ID, when the guy you're doing it to probably knows 100% you're lying, but he does it anyway because he knows he's helping someone out.
Can you give me some Milwaukee's Best? I've heard it's really good.
I've seen my dad drink it.
I've been watching Sopranos, and I think I'm on season 4 or 5. Tony Blondetto's back, and Tony's living in the old house, and he's drinking Lowenbrau the other night, and I was like, "Whoa, I haven't seen that in a long time." So it's amazing how dated that show is, even from funny things like kitchen countertops and cabinets. Carmela re-wallpapering and stuff like that. It's very dated, but at the same time, flip phones, is basically the top technology.
Right.
Tony's talking about pulling out the GPS out of a Suburban. I mean, it's nothing compared to where we are today from the standpoint of surveillance and tracking and everything else. So that it's fun kind of going back and watching that show, just for the simple fact that it's just literally filmed in a simpler time, and therefore kind of has sort of simpler tones and messages and whatnot, even though I think it gets too dark towards the end. So first 3 seasons are my favorite. I think the first 3 seasons are just golden. So have you guys watched that in a while?
No, I think I watched the original one. I think it was As Was Happening, but I haven't seen it recently. I'm looking forward to kind of at some point just going back and doing the whole thing again.
Yeah. Michael, have you seen it?
I have not.
Really? I think you'd like it, dude.
Okay.
I think you would. It's smart writing, especially the first 3 seasons. It's the first 3 seasons to me are fun because there's humor there. It gets, like I said, it gets a little dark towards the end for my tastes, which is funny enough. That's where Matt Weiner takes over, who's Weiner, who's the guy that did Mad Men, who's a genius. I mean, Mad Men's also, fantastic TV.
Right.
So, have you guys seen anything recently that you would want to recommend as we wrap it up?
Off the top, I've seen a lot recently, but off the top of my head,
doesn't have to be new.
Yeah, nothing sticks out off the top of my head. But since we are in December, I could recommend 2 Christmas horror movies that most people don't know about. My favorite one is called Rare Exports.
Okay.
Have you guys seen that?
No.
It's from 2010. It's from Finland. It's only maybe 5% of it is in English, but obviously you turn on the subtitles. But I think personally, to me, it's like the best Christmas horror movie ever made. And it's actually, it's kind of Spielbergian in many ways, but it's a way lower budget than a Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
So that's, I'd say my number 1 choice is Rare Exports. Number 2, if you're into more slasher type movies, there's another one that came out in 2010 from Amsterdam called Sint, S-I-N-T, which is another language for saint, S-A-I-N-T. And when you look for it in the U.S., it's typically listed as Saint.
Okay.
So that one is about like it makes a horror show out of the original idea of Santa Claus, which was a guy from, I don't know, Spain, who not the original, but another one of the ideas, Sinterklaas actually comes from Spain on his boat every year and rides a white horse around giving out presents. So that's a really cool one too. So
nice.
Rare Exports and Saint.
Nice. I saw Troll recently, which is a new Netflix movie, and it's kind of like a big creature like Godzilla but it's a troll. And I thought the first half hour was excellent, like really good,
Mhm.
interesting characters. And the rest of it was very basic and what you expect, and didn't really have any snap to it. But
Hmm.
that first half hour, that was really fun.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, what, the Christmas Story Christmas I thought was excellent.
Really? I'm
Yeah, I
surprised.
did. I knew that being produced by Vince and by Peter, who both at one time were going to do a deal with Glenn Beck,
Oh, really?
and do kind of like a Project Greenlight, but do it with the Blaze and do it
Huh.
with I don't think conservative filmmakers, but I think just giving the best, the may the best man win,
Mhm.
basically, and not
Yeah.
agenda driven stuff. We're talking just pure entertainment. But I know that Peter's been a producer for a while. He was a producer on Iron Man. He was in Iron Man, the first one, and he gets yelled at by Jeff Bridges, which is
Hmm.
pretty cool. But
Mhm.
I liked it. I thought, and then on top of that, I knew the '70s. It's not going to be woke. It's not going to be PC. Um, I kind of felt like this was written for Gen Xers because it was made by Gen Xers, or at least
Yeah. Yeah.
older Gen Xers, guys that are in their 50s now. So I think it was for us. I also thought that the fact that it was very much centered around fathers, fatherhood, and
Mhm.
I love the idea that Darren McGavin's character comes in and saves the day at the end. In a lot of ways, like he saved the day at the end of the first movie,
Hmm.
essentially.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I thought that that was very sweet. Was it as good as the first? No. Does it have the magic of the first? No, because the first is lightning in a bottle, and
Mhm.
that's very hard to go and do once or twice or three
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
lucky if you can. And I think that guys like Favreau, those guys can go out and bottle lightning every once in a while. They're lucky. They've it's like a Hank Aaron. You can see the stitches on the fastball. These guys can
Hmm.
they can see where the glow starts to happen, where lightning's about to strike. And they've got their bottle ready.
Yeah.
I
Swingers, Elf, Mandalorian, Iron Man. That's quite a career, man.
yeah, yeah,
Favreau.
and there's a bunch of stinkers in there. There's Jungle Book. I mean, there's Made. There's a bunch of stuff in there which I just
Yeah.
just maybe it's good, to some degree or another, but it's just not
Cowboys and
one of
Aliens, I
those
think he
movies.
did. I
Yeah,
think.
that's a terrible movie. Terrible. I had a hard time just sitting through that,
Hmm.
but yeah, man, I just think that like some of these guys they can go out and knock it out of the park, and
Hmm.
that's what John is. But otherwise,
Hmm.
that first Christmas Story is just it's just really special. It's awesome,
Mhm.
and it's like and that's another one like The Hidden, complete flop. Probably did. I
Mhm.
mean, didn't he? I mean, The Hidden performed better than A Christmas Story did.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think Billingsley said that that's also due to not being on a lot of screens. Studio did not know how to market it whatsoever. Couldn't really quite figure it out. But
Yeah.
through HBO or cable and then VHS,
Yeah.
that's become kind of that's sort of Gen X Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
And then the weird thing was that the boomers liked that movie too. Like
Hmm.
my parents loved that movie because they could identify, they could see their parents, right?
Right.
And then see themselves as the kids, even though it's earlier. My dad's more of a 50s kid because he was born in 45, and that's
Mhm.
I think late 30s, I think, or early 40s. I think that's
Hmm.
the first Christmas Story,
Mhm.
something
I'm
like
not
that.
sure.
Yeah.
It's either right after World War II or it's probably right after World War II.
Yeah, I think maybe late 40s, early 50s.
That's got to be it. Just based on like the toys and stuff like that. I'm
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the shows like Red Ryder and shit like
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
But I thought the Scott Farkus thing, I thought that was classic. There's some really good stuff that they did in that movie. I think it obviously could have been a whole lot worse, dude.
Mhm.
I know you didn't like it.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it.
No.
I thought you did a review on it.
No, no, no.
Christmas
Wait.
Story Christmas.
No, I did not. No, didn't see it yet.
Okay, you got to watch it. I think you'll like
Okay.
it.
Okay.
I always review movies before I watch them.
Well, there's the sequel. Well, there is the sequel, The Christmas Story 2, which I've never seen because
I
didn't
never saw
want to
that
see it.
either.
I heard it's horrific beyond compare.
Yeah, I don't want to see it,
Yeah.
But I thought this was well done.
Hmm.
Definitely.
I'll add and I'll say that, yeah, I agree. I thought it was done pretty well. I especially like that they made it look a lot like the original, like they would use the exact same kind of film look on like the flashbacks and that sort of thing to try and make it look like it's a logical progression.
I like that.
I didn't even think about that. That's interesting. The halo sort of effect.
Yes.
Yeah, the blurry. I also thought that the humor stuff, like they made the kids decorate the tree, and then they're sitting back and drinking wine and watching the kids. And the daughter says, this is child labor, and she's like, it's only child labor if we pay you. There's some funny lines in it, which I think obviously are meant to be politically incorrect and sort of reflect a time where, obviously, like in the first one, parents were far more brash, with their kids, and we're not helicopter parents, and we're just sort of like, they're there to raise adults, so they're going to they're going to treat them like adults.
I didn't catch what time period is the new one supposed to be, since the first one was 40s or 50s?
70s. So I think it's like early 71, 72, kind of based on the cars and everything. And that house, they only shot exteriors of the house in the original, but somebody went in and bought the house and has remodeled it to look like the original. And you can, it's an Airbnb, so you can stay in it if you want to. It's expensive, but they have a kind of a museum, and they have a lot of props, and then they have like a gift store, and then upstairs they have real bedrooms, and they've redone everything, because that house was not didn't really look like the house that they shot, which was on a soundstage, I think in Burbank originally. So it's kind of interesting stuff, and it's just like, that damn leg, man. I mean, it's on Amazon. It's 50. They have a 50-inch tall version, which is an exact mold of the original leg with that big knobby knee and the butt, and it's like, we were contemplating it. We were just like, we don't want a tree. We don't want to, it's like, do you get a tree? Or it's like, what about this? I mean, we have a window for it. I was just like, this is perfect. It's like $300, but
oh my God, it's
pricey, man. But you use it every year. It's like buying a fake tree. That's kind of what I look at.
Pays for itself.
It does. But we're doing Chinese this year in honor of it. So that is the ritual that we're going to start on Christmas. Nice. To honor A Christmas Story. We're not going to have duck, but we are going to have Chinese.
Right.
So, but yeah, Christian, you should check it out. You should definitely.
I will.
Michael, did you find anything woke or like SJW about that movie? Did you see anything? Because
no,
I am not perfect.
Not that I can recall, and I think I was on alert, paying attention to see if they did that, and I don't recall seeing anything.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, I was cautiously optimistic, and it echoes Cobra Kai from the standpoint of, I think, honoring the source material and taking it forward in a I think in an honest and entertaining way. So, have you seen Cobra Kai yet?
I've seen some of it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah,
it's in the first 2 seasons.
I've seen all of it so far. Yeah, I think it is good. Although I will say that I think they're just stretching things out too much.
Yeah,
I guess that's because I'm more into the limited show series now, like where it's kind of like a movie. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Whereas this kind of teases it like there is some sort of end, but they just keep making more seasons. So I don't know.
Well, depending on also, I think, it's kind of become a show which is now depending on who they can bring back. So now it's like, do they bring Hilary Swank back? Which I know
there was not the newest, but I think the previous season, it seemed like it was just the entire season was, remember this person, remember that person.
Yeah.
Hilary Swank will come back and say, "Listen, I'm sorry, that wasn't a good movie. I did my best."
I can still go back to that first season and rewatch it, and it's just so fresh and good. And again, I think on a lot of these, like with Sopranos, I just think sometimes you sort of expend all of your good creativity and material sort of in the first 2 to 3 seasons, and then it's just, and again, it's kind of like it becomes a vehicle which needs to continue on because this is a business. And it's like Keenan Ivory Wayans said in this interview, which is on YouTube, and it's broken into different parts, and it's a one-on-one. It's really good because it's in and around the time like after In Living Color. And he talked about when he started in TV, he learned the difference between entertainment and programming. And he said, when you watch a show, any show on TV. I don't care what it is. I don't care what network. He says, that's programming. And he said, I learned that by working with the censors and figuring out what I could and what I couldn't do. You know, and it's like that Billy D. Williams Bolt 45 commercial they did, which got, you know, which I've posted, but I posted the uncensored version because you can't find it anywhere. When you buy it on DVD, it's the edited version. So there's just this one version of it, which some dude recorded on his VHS and then uploaded to fucking YouTube, and now it lives in, you know, lives forever. But they edited it heavily at the end because he gives this girl the Bolt 45 and she drinks it, and it's like 5 times the amount of alcohol, so she passes out, you know. And then like basically he grabs her and like spreads her legs, and he's like, you know, if you want to, you know, he's like, what is it, you know, if you want to score, get Bolt 45, you know. And it's just so funny, it's so hilarious, you know.
Right.
And it's like this, and it's this girl who's like a total. She's like, I took 5 buses to get here. It's like obviously like a hooker, you know. And he looks at the camera and he's like, "What were you expecting, Whitney Houston?" You know? Anyway, Christian, what do you got going on? And give everybody your social media coordinates.
Sure. My website is operating 24/7, updated every day. HollywoodInToto.com, and then my work also appears at the Daily Wire and Outkick. I've got a new podcast which should be opening soon in the new year, so be ready or wary of that. And on Twitter, I'm at Hollywood in Toto, and it feels like a very freer space these days. So please come join me if you're not there already.
It's getting better. It's definitely getting better. So apparently, I'm sure we've all been shadow banned to one degree or another. Even I was even thinking that, like, even if like getting retweeted by somebody who's a high profile conservative account, or they follow you or you follow them. But apparently there's going to be some kind of a way to appeal this. They're going to make some kind of a mechanism to where you can see if your account's been shadow banned, how it's been shadow banned, and then you can appeal it. And that's according to Elon from I think yesterday. They're trying to set that up. So
nice.
I don't know. Michael, you're not huge on Twitter, but I mean, you don't spend a lot of time there, which I don't blame you. But at the same time, what do you think? What do you think about all this stuff?
I actually used to use Twitter a lot, like 10 years ago. But I think like all the people that I used to speak to regularly kind of left. So it's kind of like there aren't a lot of people on there interacting with my account. So I don't even bother going on there a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is a huge social network and tons of people use it, obviously. But yeah, I've mostly liked what I've seen coming out of it since it was purchased by Musk. I did kind of wonder when he said what you were just talking about. He said people are going to be able to see if they are shadow banned and why. But the one I saw didn't yet say anything about how you can appeal it. So I was just like, so you're going to let us know we're banned, but we're not going to do anything? Like, I thought that was weird, but hopefully you're correct in that there will
I hope
be
so.
to appeal it. Yeah.
I hope so. I don't know how they unravel this whole thing, because I'm sure. I mean, I don't write code. I know you deal in shit like that, man. So I mean, I don't know how complex this stuff can get, but it seems like they've got all kinds of ways of either making sure you're at the bottom, or you're banned from search results, or you know, like a lot of people I follow, I have to go to their page. I have to find them. I don't see them in my feed for some reason. Even Christian, even you, I've got to just to kind of make sure I'm not missing anything. You know, I'm either on the site or I'm checking your page, because it just doesn't show up in my feed. And I only follow like 800 people, man. I mean, and I do that purposely so I can see people's shit.
Yeah.
Maybe he's shadow banned. Maybe Christian is shadow banned.
I mean, maybe whatever Elon is doing, it takes a while to undo. I mean, all the damage that was done too. So
it seems like I'm getting more interaction. I'm getting more likes, retweets, and just people seeing stuff and comments probably in the last 3 or 4 weeks than I have since probably I joined in 2010. You know, because it seemed like it got really bad after probably like 2018, 2019 started to kind of get weird on that site. So, I mean, I'm hopeful. I wish somebody would buy YouTube and, you know, unshackle, you know, that whole thing, because Rumble is just, you know, it's just not quite there yet. There's just not enough people on Rumble, even though I love Rumble.
Right. Yeah. That's the advantage that you still get with YouTube, unfortunately, is that there's so many people there. It's a lot easier to
It's so tough to compete.
And be discovered.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
Foot traffic, I would imagine. So, and then and therefore that's advertising. So, Michael, where can people get your music, and what's the best place for people to get your music so you can make some money?
Oh, you can actually make money with music. That's new to me. But well, it's right now most people only use streaming services, and even all the big names acts they only advertise like go to Spotify. You can't buy anything there; you just stream it.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's kind of weird. You can. There are some sites where you can still buy. I don't even know. Can you even still buy from Apple, or do you just have to subscribe to Apple Music? I haven't used them in a while.
That's a
I don't
good
know.
question.
Yeah.
That's a good
But yeah,
question.
I know when it was just iTunes, you could buy stuff.
Hmm.
But I do on my music website, which is michaelcg.com, mikalcg.com. In the music section, I do have links to buy the stuff as well as stream it if
Hmm.
people don't want to buy. But there's that website where you can find me, my main site. YouTube is youtube.com/Michael, Mikal. Those are the two main ones, I
Cool.
guess.
Cool. I just bought a CD. I bought a Ryan Adams CD,
Yeah.
and it was expensive because he obviously did a very, very small print run because nobody's doing CDs anymore. So I bought the John Hughes mixtapes as well, which is a 4 CD pack. They also did LPs,
Okay.
and that's probably, I don't know, 200 or 300 songs, all from the movies. It's really good, and it's got
Sounds great.
a neat book with pictures of his studio and liner notes. I mean, I like all that stuff, which is why I buy CDs. You know,
Right.
I like album art. I like seeing,
Yeah.
you know, who played guitar on this track, because sometimes it's somebody cool. They, you know, I mean, I love that kind of stuff, and it
Mhm.
saddens me that we've gotten away from that to where it's just something
Yeah.
that you just tell Alexa to play.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a whole experience that has just been thrown in the trash. Music is not just about listening to 10 seconds online and clicking away. It's you get like it's like a media experience. You get, like you're talking about, the artwork, the book.
Mhm.
You can read everything, who's involved, lyrics and everything. See all, you might have 12 pages of artwork that you're never going to see when just listening online.
Yeah.
And I think that the packaging all plays a big part in how you perceive the music as well.
I'm the same way with you know, with Blu-ray and stuff. I still like to buy that stuff. Christian, are you people send you stuff, right?
Yeah, I do get that. Not as much as I used to get sent stuff to.
You getting like digital downloads now or something?
Yeah, I don't even have that. I mean, I have streaming links, but they expire. So
Right.
the stuff I care about, I will have to buy it. I'll buy it on Blu-ray. But yeah, it's changing. I feel a little bit like a dinosaur when I look at my movie room. Like, oh, this is great, but is this really?
Same here.
Is this like my VHS collection of yore? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I you know, and when when the EMP or the nuclear winter takes out the cloud, everybody's going to be coming over to our house basically.
That's right.
Right.
So what is there? One Blockbuster left, I think, somewhere.
Yeah, in Oregon. Yeah.
Is it?
I believe it's Oregon, or it's either Oregon or Alaska.
Are they still paying franchise fees? I'd love to know.
That would be awesome if they were. And there's just nobody there to get it.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, they did. Netflix did. Well, first it's funny. Netflix basically destroyed Blockbuster. And then they put out a documentary on the last Blockbuster. like here, look at what we murdered. and then more recently, they just put out like what's supposed to be a sitcom, but it's not very funny, called Blockbuster, where that exactly happens. Like, they're literally the last Blockbuster. The store manager gets called by like his regional guy. And he's like, well, more bad news. We just had 7 more stores closed down. But the good news is we no longer own you, so you're on your own. And suddenly the manager's like, oh shit, now I own the store. What am I going to do? So that's where it starts from.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's like an obituary, like literally on Netflix. That's so sad.
Exactly.
God. Yeah, I know. It's sad that part of the culture is gone, because I think it hurts movies. It hurts Hollywood, essentially.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Hey, Christian, when does this new Nick Cage, Nick Searcy Western come out?
I think January 6th in theaters, and maybe like the 13th in VOD, I think.
The Old Way?
Double check it. The Old Way, yeah.
The Old Way, yeah. It looks good. It looks really good. Yeah. And people should check out your review. So, because apparently it's going to piss off Second Amendment people.
I mean, the whole movie's about this gunslinger teaches his 12-year-old daughter to sling lead.
Hmm.
Cool.
How that's gonna go over?
Does Nick play a bad guy?
I don't, from the trailer, it doesn't seem to be that way, but I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Right on. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah,
Everybody
thanks for
check
having
out
us.
The Hidden. You can get it on Prime. I rented it on Prime for like $2, but
Yeah.
I think a Shout Factory or somebody has like an expanded version, and maybe there's like a making of or some documentary or
They usually have
interviews or
good
something.
behind the scenes footage on the Shout and the Scream Factory, those two
Yeah, they do great stuff,
divisions.
man. Yeah, I'm really impressed that they have brought
Mhm.
so many just great films back to life. Either going to
Yep.
get the original negative or just compiling everything into one, because it's like the Red Dawn version they did. They compiled like all of the behind the scenes stuff from like two different ones and put it into one. So it was
Nice.
very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
So
One thing
Cool.
I'll add to that. I don't know if you guys know anything about what was it? I'm forgetting it. The movie Poltergeist.
mhm.
Poltergeist 3. For years there was rumored this ending that they supposedly removed and replaced after the little girl died before the movie came out,
Mhm.
and everyone involved with the movie pretended it didn't exist forever. But then the guys from Scream Factory, Shout Factory, they actually somehow got access to the studio vault and found the missing ending and
That's what they
added it
do.
to a new like Blu-ray.
Wow. That's very cool.
That's what these guys do. Apparently, they go dive into the
Yeah.
vaults to find all these old negs and stuff, and
Mhm.
that's why the '80s stuff on Blu-ray, and especially when they go back and they get the original negative, and it's not from a dupe stock, the colors are so vibrant. I don't even think they looked that good when we saw them in the theater, because what we were watching was a copy of the original negative. So we're watching a copy of a copy. I don't know how
Yeah.
deep that goes as far as
Mhm.
distributing into theaters, but that original neg apparently is kind of like what you go to when you want to digitize this stuff, and it's
Yeah.
just, especially the '80s movies, just look so beautiful, the colors
Yeah.
and everything. So
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard a female director I was listening to talk a while ago. She's got a couple movies out, but she was saying that she uses film, which is a lot more expensive.
mm,
But she said what's great about it is that actual film supports bright colors a lot more,
Hmm.
whereas digital looks better with darkness. So that's
Hmm.
part of why you see so many movies shot digitally today that are really dark, is
yeah,
because apparently it's made to look better for that stuff.
that's interesting. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Maybe that's why Nolan and a lot of these guys they're just they won't use anything other than cellophane.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But it's $1,000 a foot. I think the last time I checked, and that was
right.
probably like 7 or 8 years ago. I don't know what it costs
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The digital stuff looks good. I just find it's a little bit too slick. I find that I like it when they go in and add some grain and make it look a little
Right.
bit more organic. But colors is a big thing, man.
Mhm.
And brightness. So,
Yeah.
well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you. Nice
Yeah.
to meet you, Michael.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
We'll do this again. We'll pick another movie because there's